Today we're at Schroeder Insurance Agency here in Troy, and I have as my guest Oliver Schroeder, who's one of the oldest businessmen in Troy, continuous, and we're going to do our talking history. Oliver, you have a very, very long history with Troy, as does your family. You have deep roots in this community. Would you tell me something about your family, your mom and dad?
Well, my mother went to Beaver School. My dad went to Beaver School. They both lived on a farm across the street from each other on 15 Mile Road, but about halfway between Rochester Road and John R. My dad lived on the north side, and my mother lived on the south side.
And that's how they met?
Yeah.
Elmer and?
Sadie.
Elmer and Sadie. When did they, so they grew up together?
Yes, ma'am.
Going to school, and their parents were farmers?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Tell us about those family farms.
Well, it was general farm. I mean, my grandfather on the south side of 15 had 40 acres, and
Did he raise crops or cattle?
mostly crops, I guess. He retired in 1924, so I can't tell you much about his farming life.
Okay.
But my other grandfather, my dad's dad, on the north side of 15, he farmed probably till, I would say in the 40s, late 40s. Then they moved to Royal Oak. They sold the farm. Well, they sold the farm to, you probably don't remember, but there was a Troy Drive-In movie.
Yes.
They bought that from my grandparents.
Okay. That was one of the largest drive-in movie theaters in the country.
Is that right?
It was one of the two largest, because I think it held over 3,000 cars, so it was very, very large.
Yep.
So that became the Troy Drive-In.
Yeah.
Now, did your father serve in the military?
You want to believe this, what I'm going to tell you? One day.
One day. Tell us about one day of service.
He got drafted November the 11th, 1918.
And the next day, we had Armistice.
They went, no, that was Armistice Day.
Okay, Armistice Day. So he
He got
only
there in
served
the
one
morning,
day.
he'd get up in the morning to go off to war, and he went to Royal Oak. That's where he had a report. And I guess, I don't know, but they said the train come in and said that they got a message that the war was over. Then they didn't know what to do with him, so they sent him home. And guess what? He got paid $1.
$1 for military service.
Yep. Well, I
Okay.
guess if they got $1 a day, but that's what he got, was $1.
Now, your father started an important business in 1920. Tell us about Henry Essman and the business that Elmer Schroeder started.
Well, what they started was a garage, run a garage business, a repair business. Then they, I think it was 1922, they become Ford dealers.
How did that happen?
Oh, I have no idea. I guess they just went over to Ford Motor Company, and I guess Ford was looking for dealerships. I don't know, that's long before my time. But
Do you remember Mr. Essman at all?
oh, Henry Eastman? Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Tell us about him.
What do you want to know? I mean, he just was he was a businessman, and him and my dad were partners for years. And then Henry got old, I guess, and wanted to retire, so my dad bought him out.
Okay.
That was right. I think it was just before the war. I think Henry was gone right around the 40s, early 40s.
You were born the same year that your dad and Henry started the Schroeder Garage, 1920?
Yes.
Tell me about your early childhood in Troy. What do you remember about growing up in the community of Big Beaver?
I don't remember nothing. Just went to Beaver School and had a few friends. And
Who were your buddies in school?
well, one of his name was Mickey McGuire. You probably don't remember, but there used to be Max Barn Dancer on Rochester Road,
Yes.
just north of 16. I don't know, is this west side? Or you probably don't remember, but there used to be a barn dancer every Saturday night.
I have pictures of it, but tell me about what you remember about the barn and the barn dances.
I never went. I don't know how to dance, so.
Ah.
But I knew they had them there every Saturday night. There was a lot of kids that went there. A lot of people went there.
Now, how much involvement did you have in your dad's business?
Nothing until after the war,
Did you hang around when you were a little boy?
probably, till they kicked me out.
There's a great picture of you hanging in your office,
Yeah.
of you standing by the counter
Yeah.
in the Ford dealership. Did your dad ask you to come after school and do work?
No, probably kicked me out. No, he never.
Now, Elmer was concerned about fire protection in Troy
Yes, ma'am.
always. And he was concerned about
Very much so.
fire.
Right.
And one of Elmer's greatest legacies was beginning a fire department in Troy in 1940.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, he met with a bunch of men in January of 1940, and he volunteered the garage
To store the truck.
to store the truck.
Right.
So suddenly you had firemen hanging around the
Well,
business.
I wasn't. I was 19 years old. I wasn't much interested, but I mean, yes, they did. They made a stall, or like I guess it would be a stall to put the truck in.
Okay.
And then it was on the side of his Ford dealership there.
Mm-hmm.
And then during probably 44, 45, along in there, they built a fire station right at the corner of Owendale and Rochester Road.
Mm-hmm.
And the building's still there. But
That became the old Riley Insurance Company
That's it.
years
That's it.
later.
Right,
Okay.
yes, ma'am.
But that then became the fire hall. Do you remember your dad going to fires very often, or what kind of fires were in Troy?
Well, ask Freddie. Most of them were grass. Probably 90% was grass.
Okay. Because we have lots of fields,
Oh, them days we had a lot of fields.
and in the summer it would get dry.
In the spring.
There were spring fires.
Oh, I mean, in the springtime of the year, we'd have lots of grass fires. I mean,
Okay.
you'd probably go maybe all day. I mean, you go from one grass fire to the next grass fire.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it was wide open country out here in them days.
Okay. And it would catch.
People would set them, and just grass fires.
There was one structure fire that was very much a part of Troy history, and that was when the Big Beaver United Methodist Church burned to the
Yeah, I
ground.
was in the Army. I wasn't
You
here.
were in the Army at that time. So tell us about your military service.
I was in 38 months, and I was in the Army Signal Corps, and I served on the Alaskan Highway.
On the Alaskan Highway.
And I was on the very southern part of it. In fact, I was still in Canada. I was in British Columbia.
What did you do as
I
part
was in the
of
Signal Corps.
in the Signal Corps? So 38 months in Alaska must have been an interesting time in a great wilderness. It's pretty rough up there.
55 below zero in the wintertime. You go to work in the morning at 8 o'clock, it was pitch dark. And when you got off at work at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it was pitch dark. That was in the wintertime. And in the summertime, it never really got dark. 11 o'clock, it would get like 7, 8 o'clock here at night in the summertime. And then a couple hours later, it'd be broad daylight again. But just the opposite in the wintertime.
Did you like it up there?
I was in the Army, I was away from home, no.
You wanted to get back to Troy.
Right.
And one of the things that happened when you came back to Troy was you got married.
I got married when I was still in the service. I got a furlough in 1944. And I come home and I got married, and then I had to go back for another year till the war was over.
Tell us about Jean Rickabus.
What do you want to know? She's a nice little gal.
Okay. And you
We've had a wonderful married life. I had 4 children. And everything is great. I always figured I was very lucky that she married me.
and you met her in school? She was one of the community kids?
Yeah. Her mother and my mother went to school together. My mother was raised on 15 Mile Road, and they went to Beaver School. And her mother was raised right on the corner of 15 and Rochester Road, and they went to Beaver School. So they knew each other. My mother was a little bit older than her mother, but not that much.
All right. I want to get back a little bit to when you came back after your time in the service and you married. Your father had become fire chief, correct?
As far as I know, yes. I don't know too much about that, but I know he was fire chief. That's all I know.
So you really didn't get then when did you go on the fire department? Because you served also.
Yeah, well, when I first come out, I lived in Warren. When we first come home, it was hard to find a place to live, but we found one in Warren. Then I finally got a place over there in Troy, and then I went on the fire department. but I think it was probably, God, 47 maybe that I went on.
Okay. Why was it important that you do that?
Well, I don't know. It's just my dad was chief, and they needed young guys on the fire department. You know, a lot of the guys were getting old, and the guys were coming back from service. And they put 4 or 5 of us on as volunteers. Guys I served with, I mean, they were coming on the fire department too.
Okay, so it was a common thing for the men to join.
Yeah, well, you had to be, what do I want to say? It's just, they wouldn't take anybody, but I mean,
Physically fit,
huh?
somebody who was physically fit,
Right,
who
right.
could do the
yeah.
job.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. And at the same time, you then went back to work for Schroeder Insurance.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, tell me how Schroeder Insurance came about when your dad really started a garage.
Well, from what he tells me, he was, they started a garage, and then in, I think, 1922, they become Ford dealers. Well, then Auto Owners Insurance come along and says, if you're going to sell them a car, you might as well sell them insurance. So they took on Auto Owners Insurance, and here we are still.
And after the war, the dealership ceased to exist, but the insurance continued?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Which did you like better, the insurance or selling cars?
Insurance.
Oh, so you were happy with the change?
Oh, very much so. I'm no mechanic.
You were still then involved, so at working for the insurance company and a volunteer fireman, but Troy was growing. Troy was changing from the rural community you remembered as a child. Everything changed after the war. So tell me about the changes that you saw when you moved back to Troy and Troy was shifting from being a township to a city.
Well, it was so gradual that really it just happened, I guess. That's about all I can say. I mean, it didn't, I don't know how to say it. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. You know, it just gradually, it just changed, I guess, about all I can say.
And Big Beaver Road changed a great deal, and the little community when the expressway came in. Did you like the changes that you saw happening?
Well, no, that's a good question. Some of it yes and some of it no. I mean, you like the old stuff, you know, but progress keeps coming, so what are you going to do?
Okay.
I mean, it was a nice little town.
Beyond the fire department, your dad also was involved in some other community service. He served on the school board.
Yep.
And now there's a Schroeder Elementary School here in Troy. Do you have any memories of your dad being active in the school board? And why do you think he did that?
And he was on the school board until they consolidated. And then when they consolidated, he got off.
Okay.
He was just on when it was a Big Beaver school. But he never was on when there was any consolidation.
Was he a strong advocate of his family and the community going to school and having a strong education? Was that very important?
Well, I'll tell you, we went to school if it was 20 below zero or anything. We never missed school, yes.
Okay.
That was one thing. I mean, you got to be pretty sick to get to stay home.
So he believed in hard work and sticking to it.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you have 4 children. Tell us about your family.
Well, there's my daughter right over there, my oldest daughter. Then I got a son. My son's the oldest, and he's an attorney here in Troy. And Janie works in the office. Joni works in the office. And Judy works for General Motors, my youngest one.
Okay. And your grandchildren?
I got 5. Two girls and 3 boys. Janie's got one. Janie's got the oldest, Molly. And Joni's got Hallie. And Dougie's got 2 boys. And Judy's got a boy.
Your company is one of the oldest ones in Troy. In fact, I think it is the oldest.
That's what they say.
88 years old. As you look back on that 88 years, and you've been involved in it now, how many years?
When I come out of the Army, 46.
Okay. What made this such a good place to have a business and such a good place to live? Why was Troy such a great place to stay?
I was born here, that's all I can tell you. I have no idea. I mean, I was born here. My grandfather's come here. My grandfather, my mother's dad, he was born in Canada, and I think he come to Michigan here in 1870 or along that time. So we've been here ever since.
And so this is just home?
This is home, yes. That's the only I ever knew.
Okay. If you had to be remembered or anything, if you had special thoughts you wanted to be remembered by, what would they be?
I was a good father, good wife, a good husband, good family man, honest citizen, stuff like that.
Salt of the earth.
Yeah, that's right.
Thank you very much, Mr. Schroeder. It's a pleasure seeing you and talking to you.